Alright guys, so in this tutorial I will be showing you guys how to basically add some clouds to your Corona sky. Doing this process is quite simple. You have actually two ways of doing this. This came at a request of from a job whereby I was told the sky looks too plain, it's just light blue. Can we get one with clouds for some character? Okay, so doing this is actually quite simple. There are actually two ways of doing this. One of the very first ways of doing this is by using an HDRI, of which we can find them at this website called HDRI Haven. I usually download most of my HDRIs from here. They're free. And so basically when you come in here, all you gotta do is just like pick one, for instance, something like this, and you can get to see what it looks like. So you can then choose to download it in whatever version you want. Once it's done downloading, as you can see the bar moving, we can then import it into our scene. Okay, so then we'll be able to like control the sky and clouds. Okay, so I'm gonna wait for this to finish. And while this finishes, we can just go right into Max and show you how to set it up. Okay, so here basically we have, as you can see over here, we have our sky looking very plain. This is basic to what um, is originally in the scene. So creating a sky is quite simple. Like I mentioned, we have two ways of doing this. So I usually do this in the slate mode, and I like to open this tab as well. So under the render setup, I like to have two options here, of which I'll show you the benefit of having it to use it this way, and having an option over here as well. So in our environment tab, by the environment tab, what I've basically done is I've created a copy here, which is going to be an instance of this. And what I have done now is that the 3ds Max environment tab, it's basically what we have in here. So this goes in there, but it's already there like we can see. And then under this section, single map, is where we have the bitmap. So this goes over here, just like that. And I just create an instance of it. So when I do this, this is basically going to be our HDRI. So to create a HDRI, first and foremost, we need to create a Corona bitmap. So we can go down to maps here, Corona bitmap. And now we can choose where HDRI which we downloaded went to. So in this case, it was in downloads, and we can see it here. Dam wall 8K HDRI. We open it. Right, so this is it. So what I'm gonna do here is that under this HDRI, I am going to link this to this section here, make it an instance. And what I'm gonna do now is that I'm gonna leave our Corona sky environment to be exactly where it is currently in the environment tab, which is here. In case you're wondering how to create your Corona sky environment, it's very simple. When you create your sun, under the modifiers tab, you'll find it over here, add Corona sky environment. By clicking on it, it automatically comes to the section. So we're going straight into the HDRI that we've created. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm using this tab here, scene environment, to alternate between the Corona environment, the HDRI, and the Corona sky. So under the Corona environment, I'm going to start with the HDRI to see what effects we get. Bear in mind that every HDRI comes with its own materials and how it appears. So when we choose any of the materials, for instance, the one we picked up, we can see basically these monkey faces. This tells you that this is how this particular HDRI is going to affect your materials, like glass, metal, and opaque objects. So we can see by this monkey face, for instance, it looks completely different from the other ones. So you can see this one here, vegetable beds. the metal looks like it's shining small compared to this one here mounting top sky dome. We can see the metal here looks a bit more less shiny, but then the glass here looks more transparent than the glass over here. So that's basically what's happening. So just like what we're seeing here, um, we can already see that the environment, um, before even we continue, you just have to remember to disable your sun, because the sun is also affecting the lightning. So we can disable this for now, and we can now actually see what the HDRI is doing and how much light it's affecting the scene. So by default, we can see that the HDRI we have dropped in here, it's having, you know, this effect. So one thing I usually like to do is that the first thing I like to do, I just have to play with the environment mapping, moving between spherical to the other ones to see what light options I have. And you can see how it affects the scene. So once you've seen basically the variations of lighting available based on the rotation is that, we can now start to play with direction. So for instance, we can now start playing the degrees rotation from 0 to, let's say, 30. I usually like to move this in multiples of 30. So we can go to like maybe 60. So we can see by moving it, we can see our clouds are changing in direction. But at the same time too, the lighting for the entire scene is being changed as well. So we can see that by moving in multiples, increasing the value, we can go to, let's say, 70, 80, 90. We can see over here let's wait for this to finish saving. It's very good to save your work. Yes, we can see over here that our lightning option is changing. So we went from 0%, just to show you the difference, 0 to 90. But by so doing, we can see our sky is changing. But at the same time too, we can get to see the background image behind the HDRI is moving together with the, so we can see the effect actually on the left hand side of the screen. And if we keep moving this from 90 to 120, we get to have different lighting options. So what people also do is that we can also use the HDRI together with our sun to create like a very nice blend effect. But then the problem with using this sometimes is that we get wrong lightning, like in terms of realism. We know, okay, right now we have our sun shining light this way, and at the same time too, we have the sky shining light this way. So if we turn this off, we can see the direction of the light is like it's coming from the top left, shining towards this way. Actually, if you look at our shadows, it looks like it's moving in this direction, but the sun is coming in from here. So if we keep playing with our direction from 120 to, let's say, 150, we can now see it's moving, it's facing directly this way. But you can see how it's affecting the building. So when you turn your sun on, you're going to be having a bit of like how do I explain it? You're going to be having two different light sources affecting different shadows and everything. So we can see over here, we have a light that is hitting the building's roof and it's moving this way, creating these shadows. But at the same time too, we can see we also have another light that is making the sun move in this direction. If you look at the shadows this way towards the south. So usually I just like to disable this for now, but then we can be playing with a bit more of the environment, so we can keep playing with more. So let's go to, like I said, 200. So we can see the sun is now moving in this direction because we can now see it on the walls here. So if we give it an option like this and we turn our sun on, there's going to be conflict of shadows. So this usually is not really, I mean, it may look nice, but from a professional eye, it's not that realistic. And at the same time too, we can see for a sky, we're getting a bit more shadows coming up here. Not shadows, sorry, clouds in background coming up here. This looks very nice. So disturbing the sun for now, you can basically play around with the direction of those clouds that you want it to be at. So we can keep playing from 220. Let's go. Let's say 250. Let's go, and we can now see that the sun looks like from this option is coming in from the left. We can see the shadow being created here. Let's go to, let's say, 300. And we can see now the sun is shining directly facing the building. Yes, so if you want to use both the HDRI lightning and your sun, you just have to try and make sure that the mapping of the environment faces that of the sun, or you move your sun to face that of the current lighting, so you can have a bit more like realistic shadows appearing. So this is how basically we control it here. So if we go back to, let's say, 200, or we go to, let's say, 150, what we can do here is that we can go down to our output amount. It's currently set to 1%. We can go from 1 to, let's say, 2, which will make it much more brighter. And we can go to, let's say, 3, and you can see automatically the scene gets very bright, and this is without even turning the sun on. So you can play with a bit more the direction again to see the effects. So we can go to, let's say, 0, the beginning, and we can see the effects from this option. At the same time, to be mindful of the background the HDRI causes, we can see on the left hand side it's looking quite exposed, and the sky is also looking very bright. So we can keep playing around to see what works best for you in terms of the lightning, and also how it's affecting the shadows and everything you're seeing. So let's go to, let's say, 50, 100, 120. And one thing I do is that as you're jotting these values down, when you move your camera angle to a different view, you get to realize that the lightning appears quite different there, and it might not be presentable for the scene. So I usually like to take in notes and write them down. For instance, I would write what I'll write is something like this. This is camera 2, so this is cam 02. Then I'll say, okay, cam 02, I like the lightning option for spherical 120, so I'll just make it like 120 meters, 120 degrees. And let's say for cam 01, I like the lightning at, let's say, 90 degrees. So that means that whenever I go to camera 1, whenever I go back to camera 1, I know, okay, I like the lightning that it gave me at 90 degrees, and I'll just write here 90. Then I know this comes back here. So this is actually a very good way to like keep remembering the rotation for the lightning, and so you don't really have to worry about, okay, what values did I set for camera 1 and camera 2. So if I go to camera 2 again, and I want to, let's say, change the rotation, I'll then take a note of the new number for, let's say, and then, okay, 120 looks fine. I can now give it another figure here, like from 120, let me try 150. See how 150 affects the entire scene, and we can see that this scene looks pretty nice. We have a bit more sun here, too exposed here, and we have a bit of clouds here. So we can go from 150 to, let's say, 180. See how it affects our scene. So we can see the sun is moving a bit more towards the left, but we're having a bit more sunlight hit the street. So let's go to, let's say, 220. And I can basically keep these figures down. So let's go to, let's say, 260. This also looks very cool. So I can leave it at 260 and I'll just write here 260. So this is just to help me remember exactly what values I have for certain angles. So when I come over here to camera 1 again, I might say, okay, rotation for camera for 260 is a bit, might not really do its thing. So I know that, okay, camera 1 was set to 90, so I can then maintain it at 90 degrees, go back to 90, and I know I have my original camera light settings. But this values based on what you want to have in your scene and all of that, in terms of the feel you want to give to your clients, and you can just keep playing with these values to get different lighting. Okay, so this is how I basically work on the environment. And just bear in mind, you can keep controlling your output amount over here. So if you want it to be a bit more darker, you can go to, let's say, 1 by default. This is the original one, or let's say 0.5. And when you do this, by doing this, you can now see that the clouds are becoming, the sky is becoming a bit more visible. So what I can do here is that I would move this in a position where the sun matches that of my light, the sun, where the rotation from the HDRI matches that of the rotation of my Corona sun. So when I turn this on, we can see that we still have my natural sunlight, and we still have the clouds appearing a bit more visible this way, but it's a bit too dark. So I can now play with the values here to see what works best. This is set into 0, so I can go to like 0.7, 0.8, and I can then adjust the values as it goes. But that's if I want to use both the sun light from the Corona sun and the HDRI sun. Now you will have some HDRIs out there that naturally do not come with any sun. So if we go to, let's say, skies, and then we choose something cloudy, you would realize that some of them literally do not emit any light at all. So if I pick something, you can see the light is very small, very little. And you also have some HDRIs that are very, very bright. So if we choose, let's say, something like this, overcast, back to what I was saying, an HDRI like this has literally no sun. So we can see how it affects the materials. And if we choose something like midday, we can see how intensive something like this is. We can even see the location of the sun here, and you can see how it's affecting your materials. So just bear with that in mind. Some HDRIs literally do not come with sunlight. So to go down to the second way of lightening the scene, we're going to be switching to this. That is where this comes in handy, Environment tab. So now this is what Corona sky is giving us for now. So under Corona sky, we can clearly see that this is looking very blue. This is because we don't have our sun on, but even when we turn it on, we can still see our sky is quite vacant. So to control our clouds under the Corona sky environment, we then have to just come and click on this section here which says enable clouds, and automatically you would have a variety of clouds appearing. So what you can now do here is that we can play with the values that we see over here. So by clicking on enable, the amounts here tells us how much clouds we want in the sky. So 0.5 to, let's say, 1% to 1 gives us more clouds. Cirrus is basically how much flat clouds there are in the sky. So if we go to make this 0 and we make this, let's say, 1, we can see the effects of what cirrus clouds do. Clouds are very high in the sky. Okay, so if you set this to 0 and we go to contrails. Contrails are basically lines in the sky created, which is usually created by planes, as far as I know, and we can increase the plane count to from 6 to, I think the maximum is 100, and by default we can see them in the sky like this, these lines. But we can also control the strength here from 0 to, let's say, 1, and we can see how strong the effect creates in the sky. So we can go to 0.18, that was the strength I used, and then the plane, and we can also see the effects on the left hand side here. So we can go back to 6, and we can also, if we bring back our clouds over here, just 5, we can control the altitudes of the clouds. So we can go for a maximum of 5,000. This basically sends them a bit higher, but by doing so we get to see a bit more clouds, and we can reduce them to a very low amount. But anything lower this way we really don't see them, but then they're actually there, but then we can get more blue. So we can just increase it to another value, a higher value. And if you notice, the clouds basically reflect the sunlight coming from our corona sun, which basically also affects the lightning for our scene. So if we turn our sun off and we bring our clouds all the way down, you'd get to see that we have an all blue sky. So basically the only thing emitting light now is coming from the environment sky itself. And by bringing our clouds back up, we can see we have a bit more white instead of all blue. And you can also increase the amount to have more in the sky, which also changes your lightning, and this is still without having to turn our corona sun on. So we can also play with the cirrus amount. We can add a bit more in here. We can play with the time of the controls. We can play with the height. So if we go a bit lower, we are basically controlling the how flat the clouds are. So if we go to, let's say, this 10, they're going to appear very flat like this. But this isn't too real, so we just have to give it a bit higher, a bit more height. So even it goes like this value, we can see that there's a bit more height towards the clouds. By so doing, we're now looking at a cloudy day, overcast, and you can see how it also affects your lightning for your scene. And by lowering the value, we can see how it affects your lightning also. And one thing you can also do here is that we can play with the variety. So this basically gives us a different variety of clouds. And we can also play with the phase. So this determines minor perturbation of the clouds to simulate. Okay, I couldn't read that part well. So but this usually has got to do with also animation. So if we are animating our clouds, this is where we're gonna have to come and like play with a couple of settings. But I'm just gonna leave this here for now, since we're not really doing an animation. Yes. So we can also give it a bit more serious to put more whiteness in the upper sides of the clouds and reduce the amounts here. Yeah, this also looks cool. Now, in case you want to have a cloud like the sky like this, but you can see it's affecting your lightning, the colorization of your scene, you can then play for tone values. So we can go from increase our exposure a little bit from 0.4 to a higher value like this. But you need to be careful because the higher you increase the exposure, the more washed out your sky might be. And then you can then increase your white balance to give it a bit more warmness, like you can see here, and just increase this a little bit more. And you can also reduce your highlights compression from 10 to, let's say, 5. Well, these are my settings. By default your settings is going to be like this at 1, but I just make mine 10. Yes. So yeah, there you have it. You just keep playing a bit more of these settings and to find the right sky that fits best for you. And you can also play with the intensity of it before you forget. Let's just go back to our original value of 0.4, and over here the intensity, we can go from 0.2 to 1. This is going to make it very, very bright and overly exposed as well. So when you do this, you can then play with your exposure here to bring it a bit down to a negative value. But then you just have to find the right spot for your scene. But 1% is a bit too high, so I'm just going to go to 0.5. And we can also play with it with different sky types. So these affect the colorization as well of the sky, which also affects how the scene looks like in the end. But by default, our sky is set to PRG clear sky. Alright, so if we turn this off, we get no clouds, and if we turn this on, our clouds remain. And if you want to go back to our HDRI, all we simply have to do is to switch to the tabs that we created, single map, and we have our HDRI back in here. Yeah, so you can just keep playing with these settings, keep trying different HDRIs that we have, and then you can see which one works best for you. So you can keep playing with your rotation. So then we go back here, we know, okay, we know our camera 1 was set to 90, so we can go back to 90, and we know we have our original lightning, and we know our camera 2, we give it a value between 120 or 160 degrees. So I can basically come in here, we know 90 doesn't work well for this angle, so we can give it, let's say that's 120, get this here, or 260. Yeah. Alright, thank you for watching this. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you all in the next one.